It's the moment you've finally been waiting for, and it's taken me a few days to be able to make this video because I had to wrap my head around everything that has happened with this season finale and this show in general. And of course, I'm talking about Severance. So let's start off with the season 2 finale. It starts off at the birthing center with Mark, with Devin and Cobell. And there's this powerful scene with Mark's innie and his outie going back and forth. He's, video recording himself, talking to his innie talking to his outie, and vice versa. This is kind of a moment we've been waiting for. I thought it could have been a little bit better. It felt sort of rushed, but understandably so, given the circumstances. It also, as that relates to Cobell, the last time we saw him, he was, screaming at her as she was moving out of the apartments or where they live next to him. He was screaming like, what goes on down there? What's happening in Lumen? He wasn't doing that this time, which felt like weird. Like, don't you want these answers? But again, the circumstances, he had to hurry. So fast forward between that scene, he goes down the elevator. We know the scene. There's this scene when he finally completes Cold Harbor, and it gets revealed that each set of numbers he completes is a new version of Gemma, and it's been completed 25 times as it concludes. So we learn that. And then there's this weird scene with right before Mark goes to save Gemma with Mr. Milchek. And apparently there is a floor in Lumen with a band, and they start playing in flashing lights, and they actually start playing I don't know the name of the song, but they start playing the song that the Bulls play before their intros that were made famous in the 90s with the Jordan Bulls. That's how I remembered it. So everything happens. He kills. No spoilers ahead. I'm not smart enough to talk about this show, period, let alone do it without not spoiling anything. So there are spoilers. So he kills Drummond. He finally saves Gemma. And, she recognizes him, and Mark is switching between his innie and outie, all that. They finally get to the door to escape, and Mark decides, innie Mark, not outie Mark, decides to betray Gemma and go with Helly. And in a way, it's this sort of, cruel, poetic, ironic ending, because the whole reason he got severed in the first place was to forget Gemma exists. And that very same thing is what prevented him from making the obvious right choice and rejoining Gemma on the outside world, and joining her out there. So that was an interesting part of that. And I've seen many people decipher this as he chose 10 more minutes with Helly and dying over being set free. And I don't agree with that at all. Remember, any Mark, the severed floor is all he knows. To him, outside that door is death, whereas inside with Helly, he actually has a chance to fight, to live. So as an audience, we're thinking that, what are you doing? You're going to die. But to any Mark, the only world he knows is that floor. And I think that kind of gets lost on the audience at times. And maybe you can blame the show for that. I don't know. Because there are times where, I remember when somebody gets fired, everyone's like, so they're dying, you're killing us. And as someone who's watching, you're just like, no, you're not. You're just, their innie is dying. But you forget that their innie is all they know. So that's an interesting way to look at it. And I think people are forgetting that. And they're also forgetting that, this makes it even more heartbreaking, is Gemma doesn't know that Mark has been severed. So to her, that's Mark, her husband, just betraying her for another woman, or for whatever reason she doesn't really know. So everybody was going crazy during that scene, as I've seen the reactions online. To me, I wasn't emotional over that scene. I was more frustrated because it's going to prevent us from getting even like more answers. But it was a good finale. In terms of the show, I've seen people say this is, like a generational show. It's one of their favorite shows ever. And for whatever reason, I haven't been able to put it in that category, and I don't know why. And I'm going to do my best to articulate that. First off, I want to say this isn't the fault of the show. It's incredibly well written, well shot, everything about it. But I do think it lacks character development. And part of that is because the show is about people who are at work. There's only so much things you can learn about someone when they're at work and they don't have any remembrance of their outside life. That being said, I wish there was more episodes like there was in season 2, episode 8, which was my favorite episode of the series so far, which is when it showed, Mark and Gemma in a world where there was actually sunshine and they were like planning on having a baby, and Mark had his short hair that all the girls were going crazy about. And we finally see them, acting normal, and they're not in this depressed futuristic world where they're living in this small town and we don't know anything about the town. I wish there was more character development. I mean, even if you go back, I mean, we have these scenes of, these characters. And because there's no real development of these characters and we don't know anything about them, I don't know how to feel. For example, Mr. Milchek is this incredibly captivating character, and I don't know where to cheer for him or to hope he dies. I don't know. I'm wondering why this man is so loyal to a company that has treated him like shit, has been racist to him. Remember, early on in the season, they gifted him the paintings with like blackface on it. You could see how it affected him. But he just keeps on trucking on for whatever reason. He stands up to Mr. Drummond in episode 9. But again, in episode 10, he's so hell-bent on, keeping the status quo, protecting the company, and I don't know why. We don't really know anything about these characters because, again, everything that takes place is in a cubicle. And that's part of the thing that I don't want to say bores me because I don't understand it. I know I'm going to have a bunch of idiots in these comments saying, oh, you don't understand the show. It's like, no, I have trouble, enjoying a show as much as I could have when it takes place in a cubicle and you see so little of the outside world. I've seen many people compare this show to Lost. And if you haven't seen Lost, you won't understand what I'm about to say, but I encourage you to watch it because it's my favorite show of all time, honestly. But I don't think it's anything like Lost at all, and here's why. Lost, when it starts, presents you with a setting. People on an airplane. They crash. They survive. There are problems that arise during that time, but the ultimate goal is clear. The Severance equivalent of that would be like if they started Lost when they're inside the hatch, typing in the codes. And they don't tell the audience why they're typing the code in, and they don't tell you anything about the characters, and they just film like 90% of the show out there, and they don't show anything of the outside world. And Lost does a great job of developing the characters. Now, I'm not saying Severance needs to have these like hour-long episodes where they're flashing back 5 years and telling us a little about these characters, but there's got to be like some like better character development. We had the episode of Cobell where we learned she was the one who actually designed all of this, but they did it in a way where that episode was incredibly boring. I would like to know more about Dylan. Like, what do we know about him other than his wife is a police officer and he seems to be kind of like a loser? I want to be clear. My criticism of this show isn't that like I need to know everything about the show before it ends. Like, that would defeat the purpose of a TV show. It's just that I think a stronger, more informative foundation needed to be set by now, if not to start the show. It's two other things that I'm having trouble with. I thought they made an effort in season 1 to display how tight the security was. Like you couldn't write anything on your arm from your innie to your outie, like Helly tried to, and others did at times. Another thing that didn't make and now they're they're kind of running free. I know there was a scene with Cabot where she was like, let them kind of do what they want. It makes the prisoners think they run the prison or something to that effect. So maybe their mindset changed. Another thing that confused me is I thought the entire purpose of the overtime contingency in season 1 and the reintegration in season 2 was to give Innie Mark more information and to avoid a situation exactly like the situation that unfolded where he doesn't recognize Gemma and he doesn't trust his Audi. I thought the whole point of that was to give him more context and information, but maybe I'm missing something there. Again, I am an idiot. This show is very complex. I don't know. If anybody has the answers in the comments, let me know. But that's just my thoughts on the show so far. Do I think it's a top tier show? No. I'm going to continue watching it. Absolutely. I'm excited for season 3. I saw people say that like if the series ended now, it would be fine. Like, no, it wouldn't. I don't know what they're talking about. We still have many things to learn. Mainly, why was Gemma there? I think, the first thing to think of is it has something to do with her being there to have a baby, relating to fertility. They do have the birthing clinic that they are at in this season finale, and we all know she was having trouble having a baby. She had a miscarriage. Did they approach her and say, hey, come here for a week and we can help you have a baby? And they kept her for 2 years. We don't know. So we'll see. There's still a lot of things to be answered. Who are Mark's parents? I've seen some rumors that Cabell is his mom. She says, I care about you, Mark. She's been watching him. Is he related to the Egan's in some way? Is Rickon, does he work for the company? Is he really a goat? We don't know. These are some of the things we've heard. So we'll wait for season 3 now, but those are just my thoughts on the season finale and the show in general and why I feel the way that I do. So if you aren't subscribed, I see a bunch of people in the comments. I appreciate all the comments and the views that I've been getting lately, which is like 50 views, but still. Make sure to subscribe, hit that bell. It will notify you when I decide to go live, do all that good stuff. I appreciate you watching, and I will be back soon.